Hello, I'm David Osborn and I'm giving you a presentation on our sheep breeding project and our farm at the Gansu Qinghuan Sheep Breeding Company Limited. Our farm is located in Gansu province, which you can see from the map runs from the centre of China out to the northwest. And in fact, the city of Lanzhou in Gansu is very close to the geographical centre of China. And this is in fact where the famous Lanzhou beef noodle comes from, my favourite dish in China. And in fact, we now have one in Melbourne, which is very good news for me. It's a very arid and mountainous province. There are very large daily and seasonal temperature extremes. Generally, people are friendly, welcoming, hardworking, and I find it a fantastic place to work. But our farm location provides many challenges and opportunities. The opportunities really come from the fantastic support and encouragement from the local and the provincial governments. The challenges come from really having to house animals and to intensify production. This is due to the risk of erosion in our province. Housing, as you would all know, provides lots of positives and negatives. It allows the intensification of production and allows us to control the variables a bit more. It gives us the ability to deal with the extreme climate in our area. It provides some feeding efficiencies. And unlike our extensive systems, it allows us to have a lot more individual animal observations per day, which allows us to cope and deal with as soon as possible some of the negatives, which is, of course, disease is the major problem you get with intensifying agriculture, and the welfare issues. We've stuck to strict housing welfare guidelines in terms of the amount of area per animal and the conditions. But this sort of facility and others like it in our province allow a level of production that would just be impossible otherwise. So our brief is really to increase production and improve production through the introduction of Australian technologies and training. A large part of our brief and through our farm is to help with the poverty reduction in our area, and we in fact are helping support 70,000 families out of poverty. Our farm is a production farm, but it's also a model facility. So we're highlighting different production methods, dealing with local nutritional sources, and also we provide a lot of training in animal handling, stockmanship, and technical training to our own staff and to our province. Our site was chosen in mid-2018. It's very hard to find a level area in our province, so we're in fact right on the top of a mountain, which had extensive site works. It's an area of 525 mu, which is approximately 35 hectares. And as you can see, the speed and quality of construction, as with all of China, has just been remarkable. Here we are having an early site meeting in mid-2018, and here's our all but completed farm in mid this year. Just extraordinary. At present, we have 18 sheds, all with this really great plastic flooring, which we now get in Australia as well. I like it because of the animal welfare. It's so much better than the bamboo slats, which we see around China a lot. And it allows easy disinfection for disease control. We currently have 55,000 square metres under roof. We have 15,000 ewes, looking to build that to 20,000 sheep and 2,000 goats. The government directive too, we have manure and water collection systems, so we provide organic fertiliser for our surrounding farms, which in turn provide feed for us. Speaking of feed, we have various feeding systems, from full robotic systems for the core breeding sheds, We have conveyor belt feeding systems in the feedlot sheds, and we have feed carts in some of the outer sheds. We have a large technical centre for embryo and semen collection and freezing. We've just begun our health diagnostic lab, and we have new and modern animal handling facilities. Now, I just had to put in this photo here of this cute lamb in a lamb incubator at night. That was taken by our director, Mr. Peter Lee, and I had to sneak that photo in somehow. Now, sheep handling, I know this isn't very exciting, but to me, this is really the key to production. It's virtually impossible to make any progress without effective sheep handling. We're teaching our teams how to do body condition scoring and how to assess sheep. Well, that's just impossible when you're catching individual sheep in a pen. So here we were in the early days, as I say, catching individual sheep. We've gone from one of the early visits where we had to assess approximately 4,000 sheep. So we built a makeshift race just so we could cope. Whereas now, last month, we had 4 of these new sheep handling pieces of equipment arrive at our centre, which will make things a lot easier. The breeds of sheep we're dealing with, most of our sheep are Chinese Hu, as you can see here in picture. We also have quite a few local tan sheep. There's a lot of tan sheep in our province, so part of our brief is to look at ways of improving those local breeds. We also have a lot of imported genetics that have come from semen, embryos and live animals from various British, Australian, South African breeds, South Downs, Suffolks, White Suffolks, Dorpers, you can see Aussie Whites. And also in China now, there are so many different breeds that have been imported. We have access to a large range of genetics. But the basis of our breeding program is really to develop breeds and systems specific to China, specific to our local environment and facilities that are available in the larger farms and the smaller farms. This is very different to a lot of the grassland production systems in Australia and overseas. So we're trying to introduce the concept of production relative to area, not individual animals. So our limiting factor is the amount of shed space we have and what we can produce from that shed space, which in our case, as you can see here, our success will be measured in kilograms of meat per square metre. Ultimately, kilograms of quality meat per square metre. So the focus is really on outcomes and individual genes rather than specific breeds or the appearance of individual animals. Now this requires recording on a very large scale, which again, without the animal handling facilities is impossible. And that's the basis of what we're trying to do. Now, our nucleus flocks or our maternals, we're looking for the same things as you look for in any maternal female breed the world over, as you can see here, which I'm sure you all are aware of: low body weight, fecundity, fertility, all these things. In our system, we're also looking for animals which perform well in accelerated breeding programs, which is part of our brief as well. So that will mean early return to estrus and so on. Now, we already have, in my opinion, a very good basis for that in the Hu breed. Now, here's some local technical data on the Hu. I'm sure at this conference you're all aware of the attributes of the Hu. In particular, its early sexual maturity, its fecundity, it seems to be very well suited to an indoor system, mainly due to its low adult weight, which again is a plus in my opinion. It says here it lambs twice a year. It doesn't quite do that, but anyway, I think it's a fantastic starting point that we have with the Hu breed. But as with all breeds, imported breeds, the Hu breed, there's a lot of variation. And in fact, this is what we take advantage of, don't we, to make genetic gain. So our early attempts have been to purely select the who that we have to form our nucleus flocks purely on phenotype. And then everything we do with those sheep and all the sheep we have will all be based on measuring and recording. And in particular, when we're out introducing outside genes, we're looking not to jeopardize what we already have, which in our case in particular is the who's fecundity. Other breeding projects which we have the ability to undertake is to in fact compare the who and other maternals to purebred systems and other maternal breeds which have already been created in China, like who Dorper crosses and so forth. And we also have 2 large goat projects beginning next year, as goat meat is very, very popular in our province and across China. Excuse me. Now, this is the basis of our breeding program. It's nothing too new. We have our nucleus flock or flocks made up of either the selected who, so purebred who that we've phenotypically selected at this stage, hybrid who that we've introduced other genes to, and we'll have other female flocks in various nucleuses that we can compare and test their performance. In this nucleus flock, we can introduce outside semen. We can use the best of the Hugh rams, imported semen from Australia and elsewhere in China. Now, within this flock, we'll be conducting extensive embryo transfer programs. I see there's some talks on embryo transfer, so I won't go into the details too much. This is something I've been doing now for 35 years, and our system is again nothing new and something that I've done in Australia numerous times, which is having a large flock of sheep, finding the nucleus, finding the best animals in there, and performing embryo transfer, laparoscopically transferring the embryos, so on and so forth. The main advantage of embryo transfer in our system is the ability to perform embryo transfer 6 times a year. So here's an example from Australia, 5,000 ewe flock. Now we select the very best 50 animals. So already the selection pressure is enormous. Now how we select those 50 animals is a discussion for other talks in this conference and will change over time from purely phenotypic selection in the early days to various measurements, creating genetic indexes, moving on to meat-eating quality and genomics later on for selection. So we've selected our best, what we consider to be our best 50 animals. We flush them 6 times a year. On average, they're producing, say, 6 lambs per flush. So those 50 sheep are producing 1,800 lambs per year. Okay, 900 female, 900 males. Now, out of these 900 females, again, whatever means necessary, we select the best 50. So again, we're putting enormous selection pressure, and we repeat this year in, year out. And those individual females being flushed can also be mated to different rams each time. So again, we get fantastic comparison between individuals. The 900 rams will select the best 20 or so for semen collection, which again puts enormous pressure on the male side. So that's the basis of what we're doing in our nucleus flock. Now, within our main flock, which is the majority of our animals used for meat production, these will be part of an accelerated breeding program. We'll be using laparoscopic AI to our different meat breeds, backing them up to the rams produced in our nucleus flock. Most of these sheep, well, this is our production side, will just go on to produce crossbred lambs. So the males and females will go straight to meat, which we've already shown has been very successful. And the best 20% or so of this flock, again, will be AI'd to our rams produced from our nucleus flock, and this will produce our replacement females. The males, obviously, from this again will just go off to meat production. Although there will be some chance, because of the large number of animals here, for the best animals from this flock to move into the nucleus. As you see here, it looks like a rather complicated slide, but it's really nothing too complex. We've already had very early success with laparoscopic AI. Laparoscopic AI with frozen semen didn't have the best reputation in China, but our first importation of semen, which we got to use in late spring, which again puts pressure on the animals in the system. We did use Regulon or melatonin, and we got 72% conception with that semen, which was an outstanding success. I've been training our local veterinarians who've gone on themselves to do AI and have achieved up to 88% conception in our autumn-summer matings with frozen semen. And as you can see, the lambs speak for themselves. I mean, that quality of lamb out of these who mothers is exceptional and something we wouldn't have seen before. Now, another large part of my brief is education. We have a technical side to this. I've been helped by many colleagues and experts from overseas. We're training them in various veterinary skills, artificial breeding, ultrasound scanning, as you can see here, and also teaching and understanding electronic recording and genetic selection programs. So education on a technical side is a large part of our brief. And also education on a practical side in stockmanship and stock handling. As you can see here, some examples, the establishment of creep feeding. We've brought in lambing shepherds from the UK to help with lambing, teaching them how to build lamb incubators for when it's very cold in winter, especially to improve lamb survival. That is a really big part of our education system. And that's really the basis of everything we're doing. It's hard to move on to advanced breeding and advanced selection until you have these basics right. Other areas for the future, as I've mentioned, part of our brief is to implement accelerated breeding programs, either 3-in-2 systems or 5-in-3 systems. Because of our requirement to reduce poverty, we're looking at developing a large extension team to take this information to our smaller farmers in Gansu. There's a real need for laboratory testing and disease diagnostic testing in our province. So that is part of our brief. And we will obviously follow on to genetic sales and distribution. And we've already begun ties with Australian universities to deliver animal science and veterinary education. And then further down the track, we'll be looking at sex semen technologies, genomics, meat quality, which we're all very lucky to have David Pethick here, who's basically the world leader in that in sheep. And ideally, I'd like to see a nationwide or linked to an international genetic assessment program so we can compare ourselves to other provinces in China and overseas. So that leads me to a very big thank you to the Qingyang City Government and the Wanshan County Government, who we couldn't have achieved any of this without their support and encouragement. My local team and colleagues and our friends who, without their hard work, we just wouldn't achieve any of this. And to my family. In fact, here's a picture of my daughter here helping with the last lambing, who allowed me to be away from home so much. So that's a big thank you, big shay to everybody. Thank you. That was a lot of information. If anyone wants specific follow-up, happy for you to email me, or here's my WeChat QR below. Thank you.